forward to your presentation.
Matt, thank you for coming, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Jeanette. Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate everybody making it out for the presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about home energy retrofits. And the first thing I kind of want to talk about is what is a retrofit? It's a common terminology that we like to use, but basically it's remodeling geared towards energy efficiency and indoor air quality, improving those two elements. You all have all heard that the building industry will never be the same. There's a movement towards remodeling right now. And the reason I wanted to kind of give this presentation and come to you all is it's my idea that people are going to migrate towards this type of improvement, not only because of the importance to them and the interest that they have, but also because of the economic feasibility, which we're going to cover here in a second. So just a quick blip bit about myself. I'm a BPI building analyst and a resident certified energy rater. Those are the two designations that you can have to rate the energy efficiency of existing residential buildings and new construction. My company offers certification for 4 different green building programs. And I'm also working with the State Energy Office on the Energy Efficiency Council on a Builders Performance Contractors Association. And just to kind of explain what that is, it's just a council facilitating this type of work to make sure that the work's going to be performed correctly and that we're given a high quality standard to our homeowners. So the topics we're going to cover is we're going to go through some of the current and pending tax incentives and utility rebate programs. We're going to go through some of the current financing methodologies and also what's out there and what could be coming up. We'll talk a little bit about what this means for us, not only as realtors, for as homeowners. I assume the majority of you on the call own your own home as well. And finally, why is this important? I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of the Energy Star tax credit. It's a federal-based tax credit right now. You get 30% up to $1,500 on windows and doors, HVAC replacements, water heater insulation. For solar, geothermal, and wind turbines, you get 30% with no upper limit. The South Carolina State Energy Office offers 25% of systems installation costs. And I think this provides a great example right off the get-go. If you're installing solar on your house, you can get up to 50% off of your installation right now with the current federal and state tax credits that are available to people. And you'll see this theme throughout the presentation. Moving on to the utility rebate programs that are out there. In the upstate, we have Duke Energy, and they offer $200 to $300 for high efficiency HVAC replacement. One thing that you all should note is that this is also available for builders. So if you have a builder who's on the cutting edge and he's putting in a high efficiency HVAC unit, definitely pass this information along. It's a great program and it incentivizes the builders to put in the high efficiency units. Another program that's in place in the PD area currently is the Progress Energy Home Improvement Plan. This is a very robust program. I really applaud Progress Energy for what they've done here, because aside from just the common replacements, windows, HVAC, they've gone a step above. And what they've focused on is essentially, let me get this little pointer here, the air duct testing and repair and the attic ceiling. These are repairs that you oftentimes don't see rebates for, and are basically puts us in a situation where what I like to call a lipstick on a pig. I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. I did an assessment for a homeowner in Columbia. She was having extremely high energy bills in the winter, between $500 to $800. She had recently replaced her HVAC unit and had the highest efficiency unit you could possibly get out there. So when I tested her ductwork, which is part of what we do for an energy audit, between 40 and 60% of the air that was supposed to be conditioning her house was actually leaking out of her ductwork and leaking into her basement and leaking into her attic. That is a prime example where something as simple as sealing up that ductwork, and it should be noted that the HVAC contractor actually replaced the ductwork in the second floor, where you've done exactly what I said. You've got this high efficiency unit, but all you've really done is put lipstick on a pig. You still have an issue with duct sealing and air infiltration. Another great example as to why these utility rebates are crucial, not only crucial but important. I just replaced my tankless or my water heater in my house. It's a tankless unit. You all know those are pretty expensive units. They're anywhere between $2,100 to $2,500. I spent $2,100 replacing it. I'm going to get $1,000 back at the end of the day. So I basically cut my costs in half as a result of the utility rebates that are currently out there and just taking advantage of them. So we've talked about what's out there currently. I have information, all these, let me get the pointer back here. All this blue text right here that you can see is links, and I don't think the pointer's working right now. But if you go to download this presentation, there's links to this to get more information about these programs. So we're going to move on for a second to the proposed legislation. Let me get that pointer out of the way. What we have here, some of you may have heard of this, some of you may have not, is the Homestar or Cash for Caulkers program. The Cash for Caulkers program has just passed the Senate and actually passed the Congress subcommittee about 2 days ago. And what we have is it's endorsed by the president and actually has wide-scale support because it is a jobs bill. It's not part of the climate change bill. It's actually targeted to help revitalize the construction industry. As you all well know, I mean, that has been one of the hardest hit industries. Construction, residential and commercial, is hanging on by a very thin thread. So this bill has wide-scale support because it's pushing to help revitalize that. It is a strictly voluntary program, much like the other utility rebates and tax incentive programs that you saw before. And it very much mimics the Progress Energy program that you have. There's 2 levels of upgrades, the silver and the gold. And the only difference between the two is one uses an energy assessor or energy auditor to help facilitate the work, and one does not. The state energy office or utility or other state entity will help facilitate the program, provide quality assurance and contractor verification. One thing I want you all to note is that within this piece of legislation, it gives between 30 and 60 days for that whatever entity decides to help facilitate the program to ultimately implement it. So what that means is that if this thing passes, it's going to take over and it's going to hit everyone by storm. So it's better that you understand what it is and how it's going to affect everyone right now. The second piece of proposed legislation, probably something a little bit more on the back burner, but just to make you all aware of what's going on, is the on-bill financing for utilities. This bill has a lot of support, obviously, from the utility companies. I know Progress Energy is pushing really hard. I know that because of the Energy Efficiency Council that I sit on. They talked about it extensively at our first meeting. It obviously has wide-scale support through the co-ops, and it's going to provide a low cost of financing, basically a 0 to 5% interest rate. I'd be surprised if it's 0, but it will be low. And the nice part about this is that the burden of payment can be passed on from one homeowner to another. So if the homeowner makes $5,000 worth of improvements, has to sell their home in a year, it's simply passed on to that utility bill. So they're going to have a more energy efficient home, and they're not going to have to worry about getting that return on investment when they go to sell. So it's a nice program in that it takes that burden off the homeowner. It will require an energy assessment by a certified professional. Again, we'll kind of talk more extensively as to why this is important. I promise you it's not just because I'm a certified professional and that I'm ultimately going to profit off of it. We're actually a third-party tester, and we help facilitate and guide the contractor to ensure that the work is being done right and that the homeowner is ultimately benefiting. So financing. You can't go anywhere in this world without money, and everyone knows with the credit crunch, it's tough right now. And utility rebates are nice, but you obviously have to wait to get that check in the mail, and tax incentives, you have to wait for the tax season. So what are homeowners doing right now? Well, typically when they're making energy efficient upgrades, they're just doing it while they're refinancing. That's very common right now. They're putting it on their credit cards if anyone has any room on their credit card right now left. And they're also reaching out to community banks for home improvement loans. In Charlotte, North Carolina, there's a community bank here locally that has low interest loans for those looking to make energy efficient upgrades, which is really nice. The other types of loan programs that I want to make you all aware of, if you're not already, is there's a 203K loan program. It is a HUD loan, and it also requires a qualified energy third-party professional to help facilitate and monitor the work and test before and after the improvements. The same goes into effect for your energy efficient mortgages, which is a new mortgage product. It's actually, I shouldn't say new, but it's for those, getting a mortgage and not refinancing, although you can refinance. This is something, again, it's a HUD loan. It's been around for 20 or 30 years, but they're trying to revitalize this because it kind of kills two birds with one stone, in that it can improve the energy efficiency of the home and also reduce the homeowner's monthly payment and give them credit for that. Another financing methodology, which it's been implemented throughout the nation. Asheville, North Carolina has implemented it, but it's similar to the utility on-bill financing, but it's through a municipality. And it's the same thing. If you go out and borrow money to improve your home and you sell it after 3 years before you pay that money back, it simply becomes a lien on the property. So now you have an energy efficient home with better indoor air quality, and you're going to have obviously a lien on the property. So take that for what it's worth. So down to the meat of the presentation, I'm sure you all are wondering, what is this going to mean for us realtors? Is it going to make our world more difficult? And I guess the immediate answer is yes and no. For those of you who prepare yourself and understand what this means for everyone, I think it'll be very easy because this isn't obviously something that's going to happen overnight. But the one thing that it will do is it'll give us a whole new way of understanding what value is in a home. We're getting appraisers involved, and we have an appraiser involved in that Energy Efficiency Council because the last reference used for a comparable of new homes is from a 1998 appraiser journal, and what it does is it basically gives for every $1 in energy efficiency relative to a comparable home, it gives $20 in equitable value. So it's a decent baseline, but it's obviously a little outdated, and it's probably going to need some more modern depiction of value when it comes to that. There's another, I have a resource, a lady who's actually going to do some continuing education credits. She's in the process of getting her certification for the state of South Carolina to do energy smart real estate professionals. She basically helps you all understand what value is when it comes to energy efficiency. And she gave me the example of lunch one day when she sold her house, which was in Florida. It was in 1998. Her house was on the market for 2 months when everyone else's was sitting there for over a year. And the way she did it was she had made energy efficient upgrades, and she went through the benefit of them and what she's done and provided ample evidence. And as I said, she's turned around and sold her house in 2 to 3 months. And not to say that those results are going to be typical, but these are things that raise people's eyebrows, and it's new to them. So again, it's just another way of adding value. Realtors, you all will need to be educated and be able to understand what silver bullets are. And what are the silver bullets? Well, it goes back to that lipstick on the pig. The high efficiency HVAC units without, sealing up ductwork. Another great example of this is windows. Windows are actually the longest payback period of any energy efficient upgrade you can make. And the typical payback on that is 25 to 40 years. And let me repeat that for you. Windows are the least efficient and longest payback period of any improvement you can make, from 25 to 40 years, it will take you to recoup your investment relative to the energy savings you will have by replacing your windows. It is strictly for aesthetics. It is not for energy efficiency. I can promise you that. The next thing here is that energy raters, we're your friends. We're third-party testers. We work with contractors. We provide in-depth analysis. That's our job. I mean, what we do comes down to a very specific science. And the beauty of it is that numbers don't lie. We're held accountable for what these improvements are going to do to the homeowner. When you're going back to an energy efficient mortgage, we have to prove that the upgrades that are going to be made are going to provide a cash flow back to the customer. And what I mean by that is, if we go out and we borrow $3,000 above your mortgage to make upgrades, and your monthly payment on that is $50, you better save $51 a month on those as a result on your utility bill. Otherwise, they won't approve the loan. And one thing I forgot to mention for energy efficient 203Ks, I have a list of vendors who are well versed in those products. So if you are interested in understanding more about those, hit me up after the presentation. I'll be happy to provide some more information. The other thing is you're going to have to understand the basics, and what we're talking about today is essentially those basics. It's probably information overload right now, but I think once you have the time to digest some of this and talk with people like myself and the appraisers and the people that are involved in this type of process, you're going to be able to be educated about them and add value to yourself and your firm by understanding what these things are. The other thing is know what a blower door and a duct blaster is. And when we talk about air infiltration and duct leakage, those are two tools that any energy assessor or auditor uses to help basically see how leaky those items are. And those are going to be key elements. I know in the North Carolina 2012 code, I don't mean to scare anyone, but it's in the code that a building inspector will be required to do a blower door and a duct blaster for new construction. Now, that's not existing homes, but just to kind of give you all an understanding of where this is all heading. So what it means for homeowners. Confusion, obviously, at first. I think that goes without saying. There's, as you can see in the beginning of the presentation, there's a ton of incentives, there's a ton of rebates, there's all this paperwork. Which program do I go under? What incentives can I apply for? What type of appliances can I install? It is all very, very confusing at first, which is why we're reaching out to you today. Oftentimes, the realtors, you all are the go-tos. You are the people that the homeowners come to for this type of information. And as I said previously, the more you all educate yourselves and you're prepared for that, the more value you can add. The other thing it's going to present is obviously an opportunity. Again, you can actually quantify the value of savings of these upgrades. It's not like granite countertops. It's not like that extra bathroom where you're kind of taking into many different factors. This is quantifiable. This gives you payback period. This gives you the estimated savings that you're going to have as a result of these improvements. Now, not to say that they're foolproof. I mean, they're estimates at that. But it is a much more accurate depiction than the typical remodeling job. The other thing that I think we've touched on already is it's going to give the homeowners more disposable income. The one thing when I perform an existing home energy audit or assessment for someone, if they're going to make upgrades, we talk about budget. We talk about, what can you afford and how much are you going to save as a result of those improvements. And the one rule that we live by is you better give the customer positive cash flow. You don't want to put them in a situation where they're borrowing money and not saving any more than what they're having to pay out. It doesn't make any sense. It's bad business practice, and it gives the home, it puts them in a worse situation than when you left them. The other thing it's going to give, with the utility rebate programs and programs like Homestar, it's going to give you a channel for reliable, approved, safe contractors and third-party verification from firms like Efficiency First and other energy raters out there to give accountability to those contractors, to hold them accountable for the work that they're doing, make sure it's done right, and make sure that it's giving them the cash back value. And finally, you're talking better living environment, better comfort, and a healthier home. I mean, that's what we aim to do. That's what we're trained to do, and that's what we look for. When we talk about indoor air quality, radon, carbon monoxide, drafty, uncomfortable parts of your house, and no longer having to compromise your comfort for being able to pay your utility bill at the end of the month. So why is this important? When it comes to global warming, I stay away from that one. We're not going to sit here and debate what global warming is and if it's really coming. And regardless of where you stand, it doesn't really matter to me. But the one thing you can't deny is that the way that we currently produce energy gives off a lot of pollution. And again, that CO2 thing, the 51%, that's in that global warming debate. So we'll keep that off the slate for right now. But the one thing we can talk about is the fact that sulfur dioxide, coal accounts for 62% of our emissions. It also accounts for the majority of our mercury disposal into our atmosphere, which there's no available figures for that, ironically enough. And it only generates 27% of our energy. The one thing that should also be noted is that South Carolina and Columbia and other areas has now been designated a non-attainment area by the EPA. The American Lung Association has rated us as a D for air quality. And the largest portion of that, as you can see, is right in here. It's because of our emissions. And it's not just a health issue in the fact that we have increased cancer rates and asthmatics, but non-attainment areas typically come with a higher economic penalty as well. The next point here is South Carolina ranks 5th in a long list of southern states that exceed the national average of electricity usage by month. We're 31% more. Okay, not a big deal. We consume more energy, right? But even the key here is that, let me get my pointer here in case, let's see if it'll work here. Is we pay 22% more than the national average, and we have cheaper utility rates than everyone else in the country. So what does that mean? Well, it means that not only we're consuming more because we have cheaper utility rates, but it means that we have some of the least efficient buildings in the entire nation. So there's obviously a lot of opportunity here. For those of you energy geeks out there or people who are just interested in the subject, David Goldstein has a great book, and he talks about energy is invisible. And it kind of goes into the play of retrofit and remodeling and why this whole thing hasn't taken off. When you make energy efficient upgrades, you can't see it like you see that sparkling new granite countertop or those nice new windows that make you feel warm and fuzzy at night. Energy is invisible, but it deeply affects our monthly budgets. And it's not just our utility bills. You can go so far as to say that petroleum can deeply affect our budgets. Everyone, if you can rewind a few years or a couple months, to 2000, I think it was 7, when gas hit $4 a gallon, everyone was in a panic. And these are things that we don't necessarily take into consideration, not only from an economic standpoint, but just in society. And basically what we've done is we put ourselves at the mercy of rising energy costs and rate increases. SCNG has just approved another rate increase. We all know that if you're an SCNG customer. So as consumers, we're constantly taking the brunt of these costs, and we're not always given the tools to be able to combat them. The final point here is that the South is growing. I've read a lot about this and kind of the urban sprawl, if you will, of the South, but one figure that comes to mind is I think the population of the South is to grow between 30 and 40% up to 2025. And what does that mean? Well, simple laws of demand. If there's more population, there's going to be more demand for energy. And if there's more demand for energy, what's that going to do? What's going to drive our prices up through the roof? And that's even without discussing what something like a cap and trade legislation would put us at. So just kind of harping on the point again. I know we've kind of beat it into the ground, but energy efficiency is not just low-hanging fruit. It's the fruit that is laying on the ground. Stephen Chu, our Secretary of Energy, it's often been something that's just kind of ignored. It's easy. It's a win-win for consumers, but we just haven't really taken advantage of it yet. And finally, it's just that energy isn't just an energy issue. You know, we talked about indoor air quality within your home and also outside your home. These aren't just things that affect our environment. They're things that affect our economy, you know, thus our wallets, and they're things that affect our overall health. Just a little quick blippet about efficiency first. We verify, improve, and promote energy efficiency in advanced buildings or green buildings. Green buildings is nothing more than exactly what I said, an advanced way of building and giving builders recognition for doing so. We do existing home energy and indoor air quality assessments or audits. We tend to kind of go away from audits because that's what the tax man refers to as new construction certification. These are all the programs that we also provided for. And you know, one thing that we also try to emphasize is when we talk about green buildings is green isn't just the environment. You know, there is a million different things that we take into consideration when we're certifying a green building, from indoor air quality to resource efficiency to how we dispose of resources on site. So, you know, the green movement is nice, but it's also kind of tainted our view of what this whole big picture means. For those of you who need information about ResNet Energy Raters or BPI Building Analysts, there's a link right there. They just both redid their websites, so if there's any functionality problems, give them a little time while they work out the kinks. And you can always check out my website, www.efficiencysc.com. I thank everyone.
Thank you, Matt.
for your
That was definitely
time,
some great
and,
information. We
we'll
do have a
certainly
couple
take on any
questions.
that we have
If
right
you'll
now.
read through them and then address them as you have time, I think everybody will appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. That was definitely some great information. We do have a couple questions. If you'll read through them and then address them as you have time, I think everybody will appreciate it.
Okay, and can you tell me how to get back to full screen here? There we go. I think I got it. Okay, great. What common issues should realtors look for when advising a client on the level of efficiency of a prospective home? You know, typically there's a lot of issues. You know, the first one obviously is, do they have extremely high utility bills? And that fluctuates obviously with the age of the home, but a lot of common issues are basically mold's a big one. That's goes without saying. If you go onto my website, let's do this. If you go onto my website, go to the homeowner section and go to common household issues. There's a giant list of them, so I'm not going to try and recite them to you right now. But you'd be interested how many of them actually tie into a much larger issue that is energy. How many energy assessment companies work with realtors on homes? Right now, not many that I know of. We're just kind of beginning our outreach to realtors, and this profession is still very new. So until this thing starts to take off, I think you'll start to see more of us reaching out to you all and trying to educate you on what's going on and where all this is headed. How does our company help realtors? Any way you need us to. You know, we're all for trying to build a mutually beneficial relationship through educating you so you can educate the consumers. You know, that's what we can offer to you. In addition to, you know, just information about energy audits from our website all the way down to we're getting ready to build a ton of educational materials about what an energy audit is. And I know Jeanette and Sharon and I have even talked about doing a different segment on what is a home energy audit and what does it cover, because there's still kind of a myth as to what it covers. But to answer that question, anything and everything. When's the best time to do an energy assessment? Right before you're getting ready to purchase the home is nice. It's easy. It's easier for the homeowner to kind of see what they're getting themselves into, to be able to qualify for an energy efficient mortgage, which they can buy down interest rate if they improve the energy efficiency of their home. That's the best time. And any time after that, if you have issues that are arising in the home, go to the common household issues in my website and if point people to that. If they have any of those issues, call us. I mean, we're not going to try and talk anyone
All right,
down
Matt.
and
Well,
on
thank
it
you.
right
That
away.
that
They're
looks like all the
costly. It's an
questions we have so
expensive
far.
process, but we can certainly point them in the right direction.
Again, I want to thank everybody
Was there any more questions?
All right, Matt.
for coming,
Thank
and
you. That
have a great
looks
Earth
like
Day.
all the questions we have so far.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate everyone's time.
Again, I want to thank everybody.